The best buyers don't want your job. They want your business to run without you. Today's guests help businesses make that transition from owner run to team run. Welcome to Business Beyond You, the one-stop hub for insights, conversations, and perspectives business owners need to build businesses that last beyond them. I'm Sara Vaziri, M&A advisor in the state of California, and today I have with me Krista Tucker, CEO of Avail Outsource. Krista, welcome to Business Beyond You.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Sure. So, Krista, the reason that I invited you as expert to this episode is a lot of times when we are selling businesses, and what we see right now in the market is there are a lot of great buyers with a lot of cash, but when they come to buy a business, even if it's a multi-million dollar business, they have been there for 30, 40 years, or even if they're a second, third generation, still we see a lot of times the business, a good portion of it, still is in the seller's brain. So the buyers get scared at what if something happens during the transition. Now I understand that your job, your role, your business is to go in the businesses and help them transition from that model that everything is the seller's brain to something that can work without their involvement all the time. That's why I invited you as an expert in this episode. But I want to start from this point. I know that you have worked on larger size businesses. So tell us at the beginning, in the large size or even medium sized businesses, they have roles, full-time jobs for people called like chief operating officer or operating manager. What exactly do these people do in those businesses that can afford having somebody full-time with that role?
It can be a multitude of things, right? I have heard the term chief of staff, chief operating officer, director of operations. They all kind of encompass a similar role, which is, I like to call it like holding all the pieces together. They're the ones that are making sure that the business runs smooth, that it is efficient, and that the policies and procedures are not only documented, put in place, but also that the teams are communicating to each other so everybody knows their role in that process, and holding people accountable to their role. In order to make the process work, everybody has to get on board. So if you have one person in the wheel, the cog, that doesn't do their part, it flows down the rest of the process. And so
Mhm.
the leader or the person accountable for that whole line is the director of operations or the COO. And they're responsible for making sure everybody's pulling their weight. And then they also communicate back to the CEO if there's any issues. So they're the liaison between the CEO and the rest of the operations.
Mhm. So by assigning those day-to-day tasks to the CEO, actually CEO get a chance of having a supervision and think most about the strategic works versus just handling whatever happens in the business day to day.
Absolutely. So it frees them up to be able to do what is important to the business on growth, which is, business development, strategy, visionary stuff, marketing, sales. It's a lot of the fun stuff that comes with running a business, honestly.
Okay. Yeah, but for small businesses, most of the entrepreneurs that we work with, they start from scratch.
Mhm.
We were talking the other day together that when you start a business, you even if you have an organizational chart, you are the one who fill out all of those.
Correct.
Correct. So when the business grows, there will be a time that it will be really hard for one person to fill all of those. Tell us an example of the situations like that that you see when you go in the businesses that you work with.
In the small to mid-sized market, it's very common. I think it is, a lot of business owners get into what they do because they're a specialist in that field. They either, enjoy it, they have a skill set. A lot of the times it's just they started doing it for themselves and like you said, it grew fast. And so they're cobbling all the pieces together to try and manage what they see. It's very reactionary, right? It's whatever's coming at them, they're dealing with it at that time to be able to continue to keep their business going. Um, so it can be challenging to help the business owner understand that letting go of some of that control can be beneficial to their growth and also allow them a little bit of space to be able to do some things that they may have been putting to the side for their business or for their personal. It's not uncommon. Everybody that I work with has started in that very similar headspace, and once they see the benefits of letting go little by little, they continue to let go in bigger in bigger rounds.
So one of the things that you do, I think that is preparing those SOPs. What are the SOPs exactly? Tell us more about that one.
So an SOP is a standard operating procedure, and really it's the Bible or the manual for how your operation works. It's very important to document the process in your business because, like you said, whether you want to sell or if something happens to where you have to step away from the business, whether you have any kind of whatever it is that makes you have to step away from the business, if you have that SOP in place, somebody can come right in, pull that SOP up and say, okay, I know how to run this business. I know where everything is at and who is responsible for what, whether that's the CEO is responsible for all those pieces, like you said in the org chart, or if it's, okay, I have this, executive admin that does this portion of the business. I have an HR group that does this portion of the business. If I need to process payroll, this person is who I'm going to go to, and this is how they do it. So it's an expectation of how the operation actually runs. And it allows for anyone to be able to come into the business and take it and not lose any steam.
Mhm. So when you come in, my understanding is that you try to talk to the owner and understand what exactly each one of the works is done. And those are exactly those SOPs you are explaining. So you help kind of print that SOPs from the seller's brain to paper. Is my
Yes.
understanding correct?
Yes, and definitely it's definitely a big part of what we do for businesses. It is one part of the business because the operational side of things also involves, vendor relationships and such. So there's a lot of time that the business owners that are in that space get bogged down with by having to manage so many elements, and vendor relationships is can be time consuming because you're constantly having to deliver what they need in order to be successful for your business. And that can be time consuming. The SOPs on the other side is, we come in and it's not just the CEO, unless there's no other employees. We'll sit with each level, each person in the business to learn what that desk does essentially, whether it's a leader for that team or it's just the person that's running that part of the business. We'll sit with each of them and look at their day to day and ask them to just go through your day and spend a couple days doing what you do and write it down as you do it so that we can get an idea of what are they thinking about when they come into the office? What is the key things that are the regular occurrences that they're going to be having to pay attention to every day? Do they come in and check their email first? Do they look for key items in their email that they tackle first, that they prioritize over others? We get really granular just so that we can really understand what the mentality is of the current state that they're in. And we can build the current state SOP, but we also like to encourage our clients to take it to the next step, which is let us also give you some suggestions for some efficiency updates and streamline some of the things that you might have if we have some suggestions because it is our field of expertise and we have a lot of tools and solutions that we know of that maybe they don't know of that we can help make their operation even better to be able to do more and scale.
Mhm. So not only you print the existing situation of the business, but also you try to find the gaps or anything
Yes.
to improve. And also, I guess that that's exactly how you go about making the business independent from the seller. You find out exactly which portion of the process is dependent to them and find solutions for them and replace.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because if everything has to run through the CEO, every decision, every approval, every move in the business, they are the bottleneck of the business. And that happens to hurt their ability to sell, like we were talking about. But it also holds them back from growing their business to the next level. You can't be the one person that is involved in every single piece of the business. And the only way to feel comfortable stepping away from that is having the right processes, procedures, and SOPs put in place so that you can know that, okay, I did make the decision at one point. This is what I want the business to run like. And here's how you need to follow it, and then put the right team in place to be able to manage to those SOPs.
So is SOP a very complex document, or what are we talking about for somebody who has never seen an SOP?
I think it's dependent on the business. So it can be very complex depending on how many different elements are going on in the business. But really, it's the core pieces. So it's your, how does your how's your HR run? How is your accounting department handled? How is your IT services and your infrastructure handled? And who handles, the management of those things? And then, the operation itself. If you're a service-based company, then it can be a little bit less involved. It's more of the customer experience. How do we make sure that the customer experience is the same for every single customer that comes in the door? And what does that look like? If it's a product-based business, it's going to be a little bit more involved because if they're creating a product, what does that look like? And what are the steps involved and who is involved in those pieces? So it can get really granular, but the main concept is to really capture the what people are doing in the day to day, right? And we can go as detailed as we want, and it can be a huge manual, or it can be very top line. And these are the divisions, and this is the basic understanding, and go with it.
Mhm. But the thing is that we are not just looking to prepare and print some documents and put them aside. You might
Correct.
find a way that people that are working in the business follow those processes. How exactly do you do that?
So that's the challenging part, right? It is important to have the right teams involved and leaders of those teams who buy into the business. You definitely have to stay present and checking in, and this is your team meetings and it's a revisit to, is there things that are breaking and why are they breaking? Well, is it because you're getting off the process? If the process is not being followed, you will immediately see it in your KPIs and your reporting metrics that you have that you should be looking at from a top level management perspective. So it's very obvious and very quick when things get out of alignment, and you can quickly zero in on, okay, this is the area that I see the problem, and let's figure out why that problem is happening. And 9 times out of 10, it's because they become off process. So you do have to stay present in that way, and having good leaders in the business is important in order to do that.
So a transition like that, let's say that you come to a business that is completely dependent on the owner and make a transition until those system and processes are in place, SOPs are available, and you have reward system to encourage everybody in the business to follow them. How long do you usually put for such a transition?
You mean when they
Until
take
you can make it to that time that it's working without the seller's involvement all the time. A transition like that, how long does it usually take? Is it a 1 month, 2 month transition, or
no, absolutely not.
you're
It is
talking
not.
about at least a year, I guess?
Yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely. And
Okay.
it can be more depending on the size of the company and the buy-in with the staff and honestly the CEO. So everybody has to get on board and want it, but change is hard. And when you're working in a business for a long period of time in a certain way, it is challenging. You have to take very small pieces and implement them over time. So it can take a while to get there because you don't want to, I mean, it's exciting and you want to rip the Band-Aid off in a certain respect because you're excited for the end result. But even if everybody has the excitement to go forward with it, you don't want to do it that fast because it can disrupt the entire business operation itself. So it's very important to take it in pieces and implement in each small division. And that way, over time, everybody is slowly getting to the next phase.
hmm Yeah, exactly. That's why we tell the owners that even 3 to 5 years before you want to sell your business, come and to talk to somebody like us. So if we see dependencies like that, we can refer them to people like you so you can help them. And then we have enough time for that, results to show on the
Right.
financials and everything before we want to bring them to the market. So it's this timing is really important. Since we are getting to the end of this episode, Krista, thank you so much for coming and joining us on this episode. Please tell everybody how they can reach out to you, what is your contact information, and how do you suggest them, when do you suggest them to contact you?
Um, 90% of the time it's when the chaos has gotten too much and capacity is too much for the business owner. But I would suggest if they're spending more than 30% of their time on the operations side of things, it's about time for them to look to outsource some and find some assistance. So
Nice.
that's typically my key. And to reach me, my website is a great way to reach us. That's www.availoutsource.com. And I'm also on LinkedIn. Either of those two places are great to connect with me.
Awesome. And we will add your information under this video for the audience, whoever is interested to reach out to you. Thank you so much for your time and thank you again for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It was great to be here.